Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. How is everybody doing? Rodney, how are you, buddy?
I couldn't be better. How are you doing?
It's hot. It's hot down here in Brentwood, Tennessee.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It's setting new records. I think every day for. They talk about four seasons, but since I'm in mortgage and I can add, we have two. It's summer and winter.
Yeah. And I tell you, that is the truth. Yesterday was kind of nice for anybody that's not from around here. Uh, it summers are hot. So let me start this way. My name is Andy Elliott. I'm a realtor here in Williamson County with Benchmark Realty. I am with Rodney Wilds, a fantastic lender I've been working with for coming up on a dozen years, I think, also in Williamson County. We just share opinions and thoughts on what's going on in the real estate industry. And if you have questions on a transaction that you're getting ready to do or you're thinking about doing, give us a call. You can give us a call, send us a text, send us an email. All our contact information is in the description box below. So starting like that. So I always ask Roddy about golfing because he's like really, really good at that. Did you go to the Live Golf tournament?
I did not, but my son did. My son did, and everybody that went said they had a really good time. It was supposedly a really good event. My son come back with all kinds of good pictures, expensive hats and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that kind of a big deal to have? It's essentially the same as PGA. I think those guys have kind of hooked up now, haven't they?
They're getting closer to a deal, but yeah, it's Bryson DeChambeau was the U.S. Open winner, so he was walking around downtown Nashville with his U.S. Open trophy.
Yeah.
Some members at our club got to see him and things like that. It was really cool to have those guys that best in the world in golf come in and play a little golf in the city.
Right here in our little town. I mean, it's
hmm
just, I think, I Nashville is awesome, And people ask me, I know this is, we normally dig right in, but I got to share this. If you're thinking about Tennessee or Nashville or whatever, listen, there's a lot of great places to live in this country. A lot of great places. And if I had a weak spot, it would be water. Like a lot of people, I like to Angie. How are you, young California girl? If there's anything that is a weakness for me on something, it would be living by the water. And in fact, I do live on a little bit of a lake, so I'm satisfied part of that. But people ask me if you could live in Florida or down in the Gulf, would you? And it's a toss up because this town is just like that. The kicker for me was you got this golf pro that comes into town, blows all the golfers away. They're like, wow. And what does he do? He goes downtown. He's checking out South Broadway. Come on. This is a cool place to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Yeah, in September we got a Corn Ferry event coming as well. So that's
a what?
the Corn Ferry is like the junior PGA Tour. It used to be called the Ben Hogan Tour, the Nike Tour.
Oh, oh,
So it's called the Corn Ferry Tour now, and it's coming to Vanderbilt Legends in September.
yeah.
So that's cool. I
Wow,
have
really? No kidding.
two pro golf tournaments. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, great. Well, enough about that, but I just wanted to kind of brag on Nashville a little bit because since I've lived here, it's coming up on, wow, 20 years. No kidding. Look at my watch to check the
Yeah.
decade, apparently.
It's it's that Rolex President. It's got the year on it.
Or, yeah, you're a funny guy. Let's talk about rates, shall we? Here we go, and here's the pip. There you go.
Here we go. Let's start with a 6-month view of our, and you can see in the 6-month view here. Well, let me pull this back some. Here we go. We go back a year view. You can see back in late October of last year is when we had a really good springboard. Our rates shot up, and since then, it's dipped down a little bit, but we've still maintained a lot of the gains that we started. We were hoping to start the year with. Um, and if you look, the 3 month view, if you look at the 3 month view here, Andy, you can see now this is it looks this is a daily movement, so it looks worse than it is, but this is not too volatile for a 6 month period coming off of what we came off of. Red is bad, green is good. When it's going upwards towards the top of the chart, rates are getting better. And if it's red going downward, it's getting a little bit worse. So you can see yesterday we had an alert to lock. A couple days in a row we've had some. But the good news is here that it's above our 200-day moving average, and that is a floor of support that we broke through and then went back through the next day or today. So that's a good sign on our rates that we're still above the 200-day moving average.
And if we were to, again, we're going to say, I was trying to pull something up, and I know it's still on your screen. I'll be with you in just a second. It's, oh, come on. There we go. Bing. Oh. There we go. Sorry about that. I got a little quiet there. I was trying to figure something out. but at least, although like the number that I'm reading, and I know that it always kind of counters what you're talking about, it's 713. So it's a little bit higher than what it's been. But it did drop down a few days ago to 6.9 something on my website.
Yes.
So we're still staying within, and we keep saying consistency and duration is the most important thing for people's peace of mind. At least that's what I think. It's my theory. And we're staying pretty close within that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, my thing is if it stays around this 7%, I think it gridlocks us a little bit. I think 7% has been the number that's consistently, when we've hit 7%, that it consistently shuts us down. Like any time that we've had a nice uptick in overall applications across the country, it's been really connected with the rates, like below 7%. So when it's hovering around this, it is stable, and people aren't but they're sick of it being this high. I think it's just keeping them on the fence.
Yeah. I had a conversation with a gentleman outside of the real estate industry, just, I would say a casual consumer, but interested in looking into the topic. And we were talking about normalization and that kind of a thing. And his comment was, if it's where we are and there's nothing you can really do about it, and you can't wait forever, because people have waited, if you've got to move, you got to move. Or if you've made a decision and it's kind of digging at you, you're going to pull the trigger. And he said, so in a sense, I'm not crazy about it. A lot of people aren't crazy about it, but it has normalized to the point where you're not super happy about it, but you pull the trigger anyway, was his point. That was his point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And crazy enough, even at 7%, I'm going to sound like a weirdo saying this, is that since we've had sustained rates, high rates for a long time, that means the credit card rates and things have skyrocketed. Home equity lines of credit, those rates have gone up as well. Actually, 1/3 of applications right now are refinance to get rid of some of this. Yeah, I'm seeing more and more of high credit card debt being paid off, even though they may be leaving a 5%.
Yeah.
They might have 200 or 300,000 at 5%. So if they go and get 6.5 or 7, but they're paying 19 on a combined $100,000 or $150,000 worth of debt, that's it makes some sense for them to get rid of some of that stuff. So some of that's happening. Like I wouldn't ever put out, oh, it's a great time to refinance, because most people be like, what are you talking about? But there are people that didn't, that may carry credit card debt and just didn't project it to be 18, 19% or whatever that rate is.
Right, right.
And they're having to
I'm
do
glad you
something different.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that part of what's going on is that the news that's out there, it may, and we're going to go through some of these articles today that really, in my opinion, they're not factual. They may be headlines, but that doesn't make them, I mean, for the moment, but that doesn't make them factual. And when we talk about, yes, the locked in effect does exist, and I think I'm probably guilty of thinking this too. The majority of, I'm going to ask this. If you were to take a poll across the country, what's the majority interest rate for mortgages these days? Is it actually 3%, or is 4 and 5% more realistic on an average across the country, would you say?
I would definitely say it would be, golly, that's a wild question, but it's definitely not going to be in the threes. I mean, when you average everybody, it's definitely going to be, a lot higher than that, probably
Yeah.
closer to 5%. But you go to the interior of these cities like ours, and you've got the majority of the people under 5%, maybe even under 4%, with a ton of equity sitting there.
Yeah. Yeah. And the only reason I bring that up is because the argument for not doing something, and I'm not promoting, do whatever you think you need to do. That's my stance on this. I'm not trying to promote I don't have an agenda here. But the argument you hear about people not selling stuff is because the interest rates are so low. The difference between 4 and 7 is significant, but it's not a life. I mean, it's not going to kill you, I guess, probably would say. I mean, I think that here's what I'm saying, and I'll shut up. People use, and I think I'm guilty of it, the 2.5, because that's mine, and 3% rate as an argument against staying put, right? Or for staying put, when in fact that's kind of an exaggeration when most people are running higher rates. And if they need to pay down debt through a HELOC or whatever, like, it's still a wise choice. I'm not a finance guy, but that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it definitely can be. Sometimes you need to get out of what you're in, but those times are very easily seen. It's like when I'll put a closing cost estimate for somebody, and it'll include the debt that they're paying off and things like that. They can immediately look at it and say, this makes so much more sense than me paying all of this interest alone on these credit cards. But it's just a slippery slope, because I'm not one to like finance debt to pay off other debt.
Correct.
Especially when you're going back to a 30-year mortgage. So all of it has to just make sense for your family and your budget and things like that. So you just have to go through the process. But I'll say this. I always tell customers, I think they're best financial advisors if you just listen to your gut, and listen, listen, pay attention to what somebody's telling you, and listen to your own self. Like, if it doesn't make sense to you, or if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. So,
yeah,
that's a good thing. I think people are their own best financial advisors in these situations.
At least, and I would add on to that. If you don't know, ask somebody that does, that you trust.
Sure.
I mean, and that's my thing, because that's what I do, because I have a lot of questions about a lot of things, and I go to the smartest person in the room, and I'm not him.
Well, I don't know about that. In real estate, you are, but yeah, I mean, I get stuff all the time and that's what I do. It's not necessarily if I'm working on a loan or not, but somebody will call me and say, "Hey, my best friend or my son's doing this, or my brother's doing it. You mind taking a look at it?" I'm like, "Yeah, 100%. I'll look at it and see, tell them, give them advice or whatever."
And frankly, that can be a benefit too. If there's no agenda there, it's just good, solid advice. That's, I think that there's something to be said for that. So, okay, let's dip into our articles. I've got 3 of them here that I think that they're going to be pretty interesting. And the first one is home prices just hit a record high. Now, are we shocked by that? No, maybe not. But what we're here to talk about is how did that happen? So, and then we're going to talk about what are we going to do about it, or what's being done about it. What's the next step? So, the first thing to be mentioned about high prices. Did you have anything first you wanted to add, Rodney, on that?
No, not on that. I'll jump in as we go through it.
Okay. Home prices jumped to a record high last month, according to data out this week. This is just a few days old, so we're not in too bad a shape with that. Elevated mortgage rates kept many home buyers and sellers on the sidelines. We know that. With the things going on with the Fed, that it looks like a rate cut this year may or may not. I mean, it's be getting pretty iffy. And so for any of those people waiting for that shoe to drop, they're going to be waiting. Continue a little longer. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. May is okay. Okay. The elevated mortgage and the lack of homes for sale is driving up prices for homes that are on the market. I'm going to show you 3 graphs in just a second. Not many people are buying or selling. May is typically peak season for buying and selling houses, but fewer existing homes were sold last month than in April. And sales were down 2.8 from a year ago, according to NAR, National Association of Realtors. A key reason is the elevated mortgage rates. Said that they have made it more expensive to buy a house. We know that. Pushing some would-be buyers out of the market. We know that. Many people who already own homes are reluctant to sell because of the rates that we're on. We're beating that to death. The relatively few homes that are selling are typically going for higher prices. The median price of a home sold in May was $419,300, an all-time record. And average home prices are climbing because the more affordable end of the market, and I'm here to tell you, has largely dried up. Now, I know you got thoughts on that.
Dried up. Man, they've been around here. They've been scouring. They've been going out as far as they can go out and building what they can build. And, I know that right now with the economy and everything, banks are tightening on the construction lending. So we'll talk about it in a minute, but yeah, it's just a weird time right now. And they're not selling, but inventory is rising and home prices are rising.
Let me show you 3.
When I say inventory is rising, like we're talking about a minute percent, but it's still going up. And what that tells me is that people do want to sell their house and move, but there's not enough. People are not buying enough due to these rates right now.
Everybody's sitting and waiting. And this spring has been, for the real estate market, has been really slow. I'm just telling you, it's nothing to panic over, but it's slower than what we're used to. I'm going to show you 3 graphs. Let's go through this real quick. And the first one is from Fred. It's the Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis. A lot of people use a lot of this data from these guys. They're really good. And it's copyrighted, and so I'm telling you who they are, and so we're good to go. So the existing home sales, February, we're up at, this is seasonally adjusted. It looks to be pretty close to 4.3, something like that is getting there. And it's dropped all the way to 4.1. That's how much it slowed down sales just since February. Now, I'm not a graph guy, but would you say that's a bit of a ski slope there, Rodney?
Yeah, it's not looking good, is it? Right there, yeah.
And now we have housing inventory. Rodney was just talking about this. And this is just from December 23 to now. That's it's a small amount, relatively speaking, but it's a huge growth. I mean, what it's telling us is nobody's buying. That's what it's telling us. It's just evidence of what we've been talking about. And then the month's supply. Look at how this month's supply has gone up to 3.7. Now, this is national. You might be in an area where your month's supply is 1 month. You might be. Ours around here, it's 2. It just seems to be like 1.822. That's just what it seems to be. And when I say here, I mean Williamson County. But across the country, it's gone up to 3.7. Any thoughts on that before I move off these charts?
Yeah, no, I mean it's weird to say that inventory is going up because we have said, and I've said it a million times, inventory has been part of the problem of our increasing home prices. Now, inventory is creeping up some, which is awesome. We've got to have more inventory, but the rates are just, you can just see now that with inventory there, you can almost take a little bit of that out of the equation of why people are not buying. And to me, it kind of says, well, it sits solely on the fact of rates, economy, how people are feeling, and things like that. Not necessarily they don't, because they do have choices now. They have more choices than they did in the past, or in the recent past.
Yes.
So that just tells me that it's a lot focused on affordability, which is rate.
And people are starting to wait. This used to be, I remember how this was a decade or so ago. People would wait around for what they considered the best deal was. And it's different for everybody. Sometimes the best deal is it's an internal. What can you get as a better rate? So you're waiting for the Fed to change things. Or what can you get a better price on a house? You've got a lot of, what makes real estate kind of confounding is there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Sorry, I just don't. Yeah. And see, the thing about it is that we're used to the house was a big equation in that. I don't think the house is the equation in it anymore. I think it's all about affordability. They can find the house they like now. They can find it in the neighborhood they want now, but they don't want the 7% rate.
And coming from the professional side, meaning I'm the one out there that sells these things, it would be very difficult if somebody said, "Hey, I haven't had any investors just call off the cuff and go, hey, what is the market? How hot do you think the market is out in Antioch or whatever?" I'm making up a place.
Yeah.
We're not getting those calls anymore. Where's the hottest place to buy?
Yeah.
I don't, not here. I did tip my hand there. The hottest place and the best place to look for deals is 37013 here in the Nashville area. I would say bar none, but that's a pretty bold statement. But chances are good you're going to get a good deal and end up someplace decent in a few years. But people are asking, how so, will I regain my equity when I buy in September? Well, it's going to be back to the old thing we used to say. If you're going to stay 3 to 5 to 7 years, you'll be fine, because that's what it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, even in this crazy time right now, house prices are going up. I don't, what is going to, and then the only other way, if rates go down, that's only going to hurt home prices. It's going to make home prices go up.
They're going to be
I mean, so if the home prices are going up now in this environment, which they ain't skyrocketing, but they're still increasing. So yeah, and Andy, I don't see people. You talking about deals? I don't see people looking for deals on homes anymore. It's like it's real. You know more about it than me, but it's all about affordability. I mean, it comes down to affordability, and it's almost like this home's in my price range, and it's not like they used to. They'd find something and try to negotiate $5,000 or $10,000 off for this against this other house, and then it just different.
It's just different, and I'm convinced, and I think based on the way people are acting, is that it would be the opposite of fun to, I'm going to make up a number, to spend $300,000 on a house, find me one of those, $300,000 on a house, and have it all of a sudden in 6 months be 280 value wise. I mean, and that's what people are afraid of, that values are going to go down. Yes, prices are going to go up, and we're going to talk about that in just about 2.5 minutes. But I think everybody is watching their dollars, frankly, as they should be, and not from a recessionary standpoint. It's like, I'm almost sure a better deal's coming around the corner. You can just tell people are thinking that.
Yeah, I'm thinking the most I see on their better deals is like their better deal is like they're hoping for a 5% next year or something. Yeah,
Because there's going to be that number that cracks it open and people start going crazy, and then not rates, but home prices are going to start to go up. Because when we look at, I'm going to jump back here just for a second. When we look at that right there, you'd have to zoom out to see how low that is compared to what inventory should be. We're so low on inventory. That's like looking at the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, and you zoom out and you go, wow, it's much higher than that.
yeah,
I don't know. It's not a good graphic, but if you're a mountain person like I am,
it's just the foothill of the Rocky Mountain. I get the visual. Yeah.
You're just looking at the bottom part. So there's the four things. Here they are. Not as many people are buying. Fred's telling us that. There's at least interest rates aren't as high as they were. Well, there's truth to that. They were. Yeah. But does that make it comfortable? No. A few more for sale signs are popping up. That's absolutely true. And here's a kicker, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. Builders are no longer coming to the rescue. Not that I think that they ever were actually coming to the rescue, but they're changing their tune about buyers. If you were a builder, how much would you invest on spec homes?
Oh man,
I don't know.
If I was a builder, it just depends. If I'm building large luxury homes, I'd
fine.
Probably whatever I could pay cash for. But if I was investing in first time home buyers in a moderate price range in an area where they could afford it, I'd build as many as I could build.
Yep. New home construction is slowing, however, which could worsen the shortage of homes for sale. It will. Mm-hmm. Builders broke ground on 5.2% fewer single family homes in May than they did in April. Building permits for future construction was also down 2.9%. So here's the reason. I'm going to do something here real quick. The reason that home prices hit $419 this year, I don't know what's going on, is because of what the article said early on. The lower end of the spectrum has dried up. And of the people that are buying, those are the ones that are a little more financially prepared. Can I say that? Is that a fair statement?
It's just that's the market that's doing more purchases right now, because the interest rate means less. The least amount, the lower you go.
Yeah, and so median, if you have fewer people buying the lower priced units, by default, it's going to start leaning on that higher end, and that's the only reason that 419 is coming around, and it's so high, is because the starter homes, this is a broad statement, don't exist like they did, you know? And so that's what we need to know. It's people, lower income people aren't buying. And so the second article that goes into this is about home builders and how they have flipped the script on what's going on. And you and I talked about this, I bet, a year ago. Here's the bottom line. The historically unaffordable housing market has been forcing builders to start making smaller homes. And that's now triggered a major milestone in prices. Since the mid-1980s, new homes typically commanded a price premium over existing homes. For my entire career, if you were going to buy a 4,500 square foot house, existing versus new was always more expensive. But it was new. It was off the rack, but it had that new home smell, you know? Since the 1980s. Howard Hughes Holdings' David O'Reilly told CNBC Wednesday that situation has been shrinking over the past months, several months, and now it's gone. Here's what he's saying: that new homes are now less expensive than existing homes. So, I mean, can you imagine if you're a home seller, one of the toughest things to do for as a real estate professional is to go into an area, the subdivision, where there's a builder active. He's actively building. And you try to sell a house that's reasonably new, 5, 6, 7 years, but still part of that same building group.
Mm-hmm.
To try to sell that house versus new construction, if it's just a few years old, I am telling you, that's tough. Have you had experience in that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, every single person or customer that I would have would probably choose a new house over the existing house. One, the existing house usually is up in their price to cover any kind of fees and everything to sell it. And the other one's usually not much more expensive so it's like, well, why wouldn't I just pay $3,000 and get a brand new house? Right.
A brand new house.
So yes, but now, and we've talked about this for like, okay, well, what are the builders doing to make the homes more affordable? They're going further out and they're making everything smaller, and less amenities. And now these houses are competing. We've done this for a couple of years. Now these houses are on resales, and all the other houses that were, they first built are bigger or whatever, maybe even nicer inside, are selling for more. I like it. I like that trend. I'm anxious to see how that, but I definitely like that trend. It equals out the market a little bit.
And it dovetails what you said perfectly into people are more concerned, and it's about the affordability. I'll get as much house as my pennies will buy,
Right.
And that's where they're talking about this. And I can't say that they should have done that. I don't have any idea how that works really. But for them to supply a need, there's a void in the market for lower priced homes, which means smaller lots, smaller square footage, maybe 1,800, maybe 1,200, whatever, to get it to where it's affordable. Maybe not have all the splash and dash on there, the fancy stuff, but it keeps you warm and it's a nice place to be, and you can plant your flowers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hope for that. This article actually kind of got me pumped up because, this is going to sound crazy, but I mean, we're not dead yet. Changes are coming. But here's a good example of this is manageable, meaning we can head in a direction that'll help people.
No, I think it's like you said, I think it's, I like it. Now, if you're a homeowner in a regular neighborhood and there's still building going on, in your neighborhood, you're likely to be in this same position to where you're a more equal footing with a new house. And, that provides good competition. I mean,
and there's a lot of people that think, when you say competition, that's what triggered me. A lot of people think that builders are tough to deal with. Let me tell you, that builders, when things are going crazy, like a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, I guess, builders were tough to deal with because they didn't need you. They had plenty of business and you can go away. But now things have slowed down. They have more flexibility than a hell of a lot of sellers do. And it can turn into different kind of countertops, upgrades on appliances or cabinetry or carpet or whatever.
flexibility on move-in times. I mean, yes.
And are they flexible on financing? You betcha.
Yeah.
Meaning they can give you a lot. And I think that they're going to be the guys. They're going to be the guys that figure out where the market is. Ultimately for that shelf in the market, because there's low end, medium, and then there's skyrocket. I just think it's exciting that they're what was the Yeah, I had taken a note here that in terms of market share or the market ability, builders really have an ace in the hole, and that's they can build to the affordability level, whatever that happens to be. They've just got to make a decision to do it.
Well, you know how it is. I mean, a lot of builders back in the day, once they built one if they start out at 100,000, and the second one would be at 2, the next one would be at 4, the next one would be at 8, and then by now they'd have a 3.7 million house on the market for 2 years. Because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's a
One
lot
of
of
the
builders that stay in that same first time home buyer range and just absolutely, some around like our largest around here might build 400 or 500 homes a year. Um,
Yeah. Over the years that I've worked with a lot of different builders, and I know that you did a lot of loans for these guys. I won't mention their name because I don't even know if they're around anymore. But they built up in Donaldson, and they had lots of townhomes. But what they did was the insides were kind of nice looking, a little different. They had
mhm.
wide baseboard on the floor that maybe wasn't um, routed like fancy schmancy, but it was dark and it was nice, and everything that they had was inexpensive. And golly, over a decade they just did great
Yeah.
business, of selling affordable, mostly townhomes. Then we did those detached condos, which like what?
Yeah.
What? Can I look at
Yeah,
the deeds?
land's so expensive now. I mean, it's like they done built up everywhere.
Yeah, they just had the. All I'm saying, the reason I mentioned that is they had their formula figured out. They didn't want to do the $1 million stuff, and because this other stuff they were doing, that's when we were back with the Sounds team, was just flying off the shelves. I mean, they're just flying off the shelves. It was great. So this is good news. I think that it's good news.
Yeah, it's different. It's seeing this trend play out. It's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. So then that lends us to the next thing. Let me look at something. Check my. Um, the next article is about Janet Yellen. Did you know her husband is a Nobel Prize uh, economist?
I can't I can't believe it.
He is. I didn't know
I
that till
can't
the other
believe
day.
it.
I went, what? Really? Okay.
Yeah, well, I'll go ahead and profess my distaste for Janet Yellen, but
Okay.
uh, over the course of my career, she hates banks and the stuff that she puts in place. Well, you can go ahead and jump in this article. I won't go
Yeah,
into
there's
my
going to be a couple of things you're
disdain.
not going to fall in love
This
with.
is a family show.
This is a family show, but we don't like Janet Yellen. We're just saying. Kidding. The U.S. Treasury, the reason I picked this article is we've got affordability is top line problem that needs to be solved. That was the first article. Second, we've got builders that are changing their direction to try to satisfy that. This third article is about the Treasury. Janet Yellen, I don't know how much she had really involved in this, but the government per se is going to get ready to devote $100 million over 3 years to affordable housing. Doesn't sound a lot when you say it that way, does it? 100 million for the country. But here it is. Headlines. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, whose name will not be mentioned again, announced $100 million in new financing on Monday. This is just a few days old. To increase supply of affordable housing as the Biden administration seeks to address housing costs ahead of November 5th presidential election. The first thing I'm going to say is, could there be a connection? Well,
Yes, you think?
I don't know. If you have an opinion, please share. The comments are below. The measure is one of several moves by the Treasury to try to address a chronic housing shortage, which has been a contributor to lingering inflation, a source of voter dissatisfaction. Interesting for President Joe Biden's handling of the economy. And this is Yahoo, so I don't know how they lean. Anyway, couple of things. The additional $100 million over 3 years will come from payments that the Treasury is receiving from prior COVID era investments. It's amazing how much of that COVID money did not get spent, but it's now in a bunch of buckets waiting to be spent for something else. I mean,
Yeah, hadn't even came back, and our secretary's already spending it on, which you can't even define how she's spending it, but we'll go ahead.
the COVID era investments in computer delays. The 2021 Emergency Capital Investment Program injected over $8.57 billion into community lenders. Here we come, who in turn invested $1.2 billion in 433 affordable housing projects. It's a good thing. The additional funds could support financing of thousands more affordable housing units through a new program housed at the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund. Do you understand any of that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
I mean, let
you.
me, I'll break it down for you here.
I'm ready.
We started the article. They're getting she's announced $100 million in new financing to increase the supply of affordable housing because of the election, because Joe Biden's. I'm sure he called her after the debate and said, "Hey, you got to do something to,
Hey,
do
quick.
something." Somebody called her. He probably didn't call her, but now, so you got, obviously this $100 million for political reasons, but the problem I have with it is it goes. It's one, they don't even have it, and it's $33 million a year for the whole country for 3 years. $33 million is not a lot for housing. Like, if we were doing really good in a market, like one office, like we could do $100 million in 1 month if we were really crazy busy. Okay, so when they do $33 million for over the whole country from the government, it's not going to help. But they call it a new house at the. They just make up something. A new program housed at the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund. Nobody's even heard of that. I mean, what is that? So it's really just to me, is just a political ploy. Like, have you ever heard of the CDFI fund?
No, I had to look it up. I had to look it up, and
did it actually exist? I mean,
apparently,
so, and in the last, well, I'll let you talk about the last part.
No, please, you go ahead. Go right ahead. Keep going.
The last part of the article, this is where she hates banks, in my opinion. Yellen is also calling on the 11 federal home loan banks to devote at least 20% of their net income, after they pay that 20% of their next income for housing programs. So what happened to people's profit is it's like nobody else can have profit but her. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you get profit, you got to spend it to fix the president's problems that he's created. But to me, this is a ploy. There's nothing to it. There's not going to be. I can't see how a single homeowner is going to benefit from this program. I mean, they just make up stuff, and it's a political ploy coming off a bad beatdown that Joe Biden got on TV the other night. That he gave himself. I mean, it's not like Trump, crashed the party. I mean, this guy just, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he did it. He's been like this, but
now everybody sees it. It's to the point. That's all I'm going to say. It's undeniable now. That's all I'm going to say. But when we're talking about these finances, help me. I just want to parse one thing out, one paragraph, and you started on it. Yellen is also calling. This is what she's calling for to encourage this affordable housing funding. This is what she's calling for, and Rodney mentioned part of it. Yellen is also calling on the 11 federal home loan banks to to devote at least 20% of their net income to housing programs, up from the legal requirement of 10%. So you're already getting chopped for 10%. Right. And the bank's voluntary commitment of 15%. That's what threw me off. What does that "and the bank's voluntary commitment of 15% mean? Is that a total of 35%?
It sounds like she's already pressured them into going from 10% of their profit to 15% voluntarily before they enact some kind of stupid government legislation against the banks to require them to spend their profit. And that's what I'm saying is that, like, if you go back to that article as well, when you get talking about money in the government, people are going to tune this out because I go crazy about it. But let's look at it. The 2021 Emergency Capital Investment Program, they spent $8.57 billion.
Yep. Who
invested $1.2 billion in 430. Well, what happened to the other $7.3 billion? Now you're trying to collect $100 million of this 8.57 back and give out. I'm like, you should have made, like, what happened with working this $9 million on the front end? Like, you give it out and they only use one billion of it, like, and then they're only getting $100 million back.
Well, but it cost $500 million to manage the $3 billion you gave me. So, there's that.
They'll send Ukraine $50 billion, then worry about somebody writing a $50,000 check to a who knows what, some kind of fund. It's just crazy that our government but to me, this is one of the biggest, goofiest political ploys. And then, because obviously there's nothing behind it. All she's saying is they're going to try to take $100 million that somebody owes them and spend it over a 3-year period. That's not going to put a dent in nothing. But
and their approach is to help handle the financing. They're not facilitating the building of any homes, any physical structures. From what I read, it's all how you finance it. Is that correct?
It's like, I don't know how they would use that $33 million, like how they're saying they're going. I mean, how they would use it. If it's $5,000 at a time to help a home buyer with a grant, but it's not very. All that was a political message to throw something out, and anybody that's ever done more than one mortgage could probably put their eyes on that and say, man, that's pretty, I have no clue what they're trying to do here.
If anybody cares, I'll leave the link to this particular article, because and we probably should have gone through a little bit of some of the comments, but I think that you're right. Finances and governments bore you to tears. But I'll leave this article link in the description so you can check out some of the comments. I only include one comment, and there's 34 to this. And it says, recently the city of LA unveiled some newly constructed units to address the homelessness there. Cost per unit, $500,000. $100 million to cover 200 of them.
Right. I mean, 200 homes won't cure one city, one big. Let's take San Francisco. I hear the homelessness is bad there. 200 homes probably wouldn't put a dent in one city in California with that. That's what I'm saying. Since Janet Yellen and the Democrats had done the Dodd-Frank and all those rules since like 2008, they've increased the cost of mortgage processing and delivering a mortgage probably tenfold. And the banking regulations they put on people, like you see there, it's just, you see if you're a federal home loan bank, you got to give 10% of your net profit back to.
Where does that get charged on the other end? Who pays for that on the other end?
Yeah, well, they always, exactly. That's who pays for it. The customers pay for it. Who do they think is going to pay for it? Like the big bank officers are just going, oh, well, I'm not making $1 million this year. No, that's not happening. All that stays the same. It's just the cost.
Call Elon.
Yeah. But Yeah, I mean, you can see. It looks like a lot of the comments on there. They they uh, they went to Rodney School of Banking.
Yeah, I'll leave it. I got one more. It says, "This is from Comrade Bernie. This is a bad idea. Wherever the government gets involved in the finances of private sector, it totally messes it up." And I have to agree with that. It's like, what did Ronald Reagan say? We're from the government, and I'm here to help.
Yeah.
Run. So we've got a new segment. Hold on, buckle up, everybody. We've got a new segment on dollars and cents with Andy and Rodney, and it's called Newsbreakers. Yes, Newsbreakers. That's right,
The newsbreakers.
Newsbreakers. Here's what it is. We're not making news. We're breaking it as well. And Rodney has an opinion on this particular article that said to afford a monthly mortgage payment in Nashville, Tennessee, you got to have like $200,000 down, right? In ready cash. So I think we're calling them out on that. That's our
Yes.
newsbreakers. Hit it. Hit
Yes.
it.
Let me see here. I'm trying to pull that art. Do you have it, or you want to flash it up there? Or?
I've got it, but it's just print. It's just
I
print.
got you. I got you. I got it right here. You want to start, or you want me to start?
No, I don't know anything about it. You do.
Well, the article. Read me the headline of the article while I pull it up here.
Okay. To afford a monthly mortgage payment, middle class Americans need to put more than $127,000 down. This is a broad statement across the country. Seattle, to comfortably afford a typical U.S. home, the home buyer making the median income needs to put down nearly $127,000 or 35.4%, according to a new Zillow analysis. And I like Zillow. They're data guys. I got no beef with those guys. 5 years ago, when mortgage rates were hovering at just above 4%, and the typical home was worth about 50% less. Should I read that again or not? That hurts too much. That home would have been affordable with no money down. Okay, good.
Yes. Now, see that one part of the article, I love how they talk about the difference between what it is today in affordability versus what it was 5 years ago.
Yes.
That's a very very fair comparison when you're using the same numbers, and it also shows you how ridiculous or how fast home affordability can get out of reach when home prices do what they've done over the past year or the past several years, and interest rates go up to unprecedented levels, right? So I
Yep.
thought that article was that piece of the article was good. What I don't like is the sensational headlines of saying, like, if you buy in Nashville, Channel 4 put this out, like, if you basically buy in Nashville, you're going to need $200,000 in order to purchase a home. In average, I think they use the median price too, which is
Yep.
just over 400,000.
Correct.
So basically, what they're saying is that telling every first-time home buyer out there that you're going to need $200,000 down to be able to afford this house. Now, why are they putting that out? Because it's sensational headlines. Like, I've never heard somebody say you need $200,000 to purchase a $400,000 home. It's just not accurate. When the majority of the people in Tennessee, if they have that $400,000 home, you're going to be, let's see here, you've got a very good chance at just at $14,000 payment. A 3% down payment on an FHA or a conventional loan is just $12,000. So I didn't like the article because I think every single person reading it right now would see that, and without knowing why the article numbers are so messed up, they don't get it. And why would if you the only reason the numbers, I'll tell you why the numbers are so skewed, why they're saying you need it, is because they're assuming every person in there makes the median income.
Right.
that's what gets you. And the median income is in some areas of Tennessee is, $65,000, $75,000.
Mm-hmm.
So if you when you base it on say $50,000 or $60,000, yeah, you can't afford a whole lot. So that's why they're saying you need such a large down payment, because at $60,000, you can only finance a couple $100,000. And so they're saying, okay, well, it's sensational headlines. If you've got a $400,000 median sales price, you've got to put $200,000 if you make the area median income.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't like anything based on that area median income, because it's well below what people actually make. Like when I see applications, I don't see area median income.
In my opinion, an article like that can kill somebody's spirit who's starting to think about buying a house.
Oh, absolutely. It's sensational. It's like somebody seeing that, and who understands area median income? Like if you didn't do my job, I don't think that I would know what area median income is if I was selling cars or doing something different.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wouldn't know what that is. So that article is awful. It's extremely misleading, and it's just, I don't know. For me, I hate that message being put out, I guess, is why I don't like it, because it's just not true. Not everybody makes the area median income, and not everybody's, because if you do make the area median income, you're probably not looking to live in the most expensive area that there is.
Yeah. It's, I'm glad that you brought that up. And, for anybody I think it just kind of it proves our point a little bit. And the reason for this show, I enjoy Rodney's company and his conversation and the folks that join us. I enjoy that a lot. But it's things like this. I love the idea of putting out into the world. You feel free to ignore that kind of a thing. If you're thinking about buying a house, call somebody who actually would be lending you the money. I don't know, would know how it works. That's just my
I just hope it does. I hope, that 10,000 people don't see that article and get discouraged about looking. Because if it was positive, if it was written positive manner, it'd been like, hey, you only need $12,000 for a $400,000 price. And I bet more people don't know that than the other way than they're trying to put it.
I guarantee you more people think that it's a crazy number like that. It's only the people that have put in time to kind of study the numbers. They're getting their ducks in a row. Those folks, they're getting ready to do something, and they're doing a little bit of research. Most people will stop or start their research based on what could be an inaccuracy like this. I'm pointing to a computer screen. Honey, why don't you even want to talk about it? Because that scares me to death. Well, don't. If you have a dream, and for weeks, that little candid thing, a little behind the scenes thing, for weeks, when I scour the news and try to figure out what Roddy and I can talk about that would be interesting for ourselves and our community. There's been so many articles about, is the American dream dead? I mean, there's just been a lot of that. And it's pervasive enough as I started considering that, putting on our show, and I just couldn't do it. There's people, very influential people out there saying those, I consider them to be defeatist, the defeatist language of about the American dream and stuff. And here's what I gotta say. Those guys can go get bit. I mean, I don't care what they think. I don't care how rich they are, and I don't care how much influence they have. But if you want to build a dream, and it includes a house, and you want to live someplace, buy a place for your family, you can do it. You can. Hey, it may not be this year. It might be a year from now. Whatever. Everybody's got to build up their credit, if that's the case, or build up their reserves. Whatever. But if you plant your flag and say, this is what I want, how do I do that, and start taking steps. The American dream is alive and well, and I am in love with this country, and period. And you can
Yeah.
do it. And just call somebody that you trust. When I have financial questions, I call Rodney. I'm just telling you, that's why I do. That's why we do a show together, because I trust him. But I'm telling you that we're suggesting it. Call somebody you trust. The American dream is, we're okay. Just ignore those guys and these
Yeah,
criminal
it's
articles.
it's unfortunate. Then they're not lying. I mean, you could write an article and kind of pick out some data points and go off those data points and not mention them and make the article look good or bad, kind of depending on what you're wanting to throw at it. But I don't know. I just hate seeing that. I'm a little bit biased. I love. I've helped so many first time home buyers get in houses, and it's made a huge difference for them over the last, when I've done this for 20 plus years. These people buying houses, and they don't have much money, and it helps them get into it. And 10 years later, they got a bunch of equity, and and for most of everybody, it stops this home ownership freezes your rent right then. Like, you never have to worry about your house, going crazy up like rent does. So,
Yeah.
anyways, just I'm just a little sensitive to those kind of articles. So,
Well, and it's our show, and we get to pick our position. And my position is, it's going to be okay. You just have to
yeah.
work at it. Just put a plan together. So next week, I had it on the docket for this week, but it's going to be 9 takeaways. Get ready for this. We didn't talk about the NAR settlement this week. Yes.
Well, hey, that's one of my favorite subjects. So yeah, I wanted that. We'll do that 9 article next time, because there was only 2 changes, but there's 9 takeaways. So I want to go through that.
We'll go through that anyway. So Angie, thank you so much for being here. Philip and Wendy, if you're behind the scenes there, let's see the number up there. We're glad to see you. I know I just love you guys. Thank you for being here. Rodney, any final thoughts, sir?
No, just you see these articles. I tell you my final thought. If there's a question out there that you have about an article, feel free to call one of us. We'll give you our opinion on it, and give you at least our honest opinion on if something's confusing, or if you got a question about a transaction.
Got it. We're here for you. Contact information it's easy to find. You know where it is. Have a great week. See you next Tuesday.